Welcome to another edition of Dish It Out. I'm Frank Benowitz, and of course this gentleman needs no introduction, but I'll give him one just nonetheless. Chef Doug Fee. And Doug, what are we going to be making today? The viewers at home can see some things. Would you like to describe?
Well, welcome to our neighborhood here at Mercer County Community College. Yeah, we have a theme today of coffee. So we started off with our entree today. We have a coffee rub filet mignon, along with a cafe au lait sauce, some creamy cheese polenta, little roasted vegetables, followed by an espresso brownie with some special whipped topping.
Well, it looks fantastic. Do I have to wait and see how this stuff is made, or can I dig in now?
Nope, we're ready to start. This is Dish It Out. Stay tuned. I think you're going to like what we have. All right, so what we have here is a whole tenderloin of beef.
Yummy.
And notice anything about it?
I notice it's not cooked yet.
That's true.
And I notice
Not
there's
very
fat and
appetizing,
silver skin on there too.
Yes, which we don't want.
Not
So we're going to
very
take that
tasty.
off. But you'll notice we shrunk them down to size here.
Oh yeah, I see that.
So the middle piece is in our magic oven, so that when we're done with this, it's going to come right out.
Is that like Houdini, or is that more Copperfield?
We're going to go with the Copperfield, a little more up to date. All right, so this fat and silver skin, we're going to want to trim off of this. And you can see we have what's called the chain attached here. And we're going to trim this up and remove all of this, because this is something, no matter how long you cook it for, it's going to stay really tough. So we want to cut that off.
So getting back to that chain, is that the Aretha Franklin favorite? That's not the chain of fools, right?
Not at all. Although what we want to do with this chain is actually a lot of times people debate about how much you want to leave on here. And if it's not going to be attached to a roast, in our case, we're going to roast the tenderloin in a piece here, we can take that off and that'll work just fine in something like a stroganoff.
Absolutely.
So as we clean this up, this is something that we actually do here at the college.
I was waiting for that shameless plug. In our Food Preparation 1 class, among other classes, we teach this.
That's right. So we show you how to work with different cuts of meat, different applications, how to cook them, different ways you want to approach cooking them.
Such as that meat fabrication class that's coming up.
That's right, brand new class. So meat, poultry, and fish fabrication. So for our more advanced students.
And for those of you at home, this is another reason to take a class with us, but obviously you can buy this already portioned out at your grocery. Of course, what will the cost differential be?
You know, for the 5 minutes it's going to take me to do this, it's not worth it, whatever it is. So now, if you're working at home and you don't know how to do this, you just don't want to cut the meat. You want to cut where the meat isn't, one of the basics. All right, so now we have a piece here, and we're just going to trim this up just a little more. And we'll finish this, and we're going to tie this off.
And of course, in this case, we're doing a roast, but if they wanted to, they could cut these into portions and have your best steak to some as far as tenderness, the filet mignon.
Exactly. So you can see here, we have a nice round of meat in here, and we're going to tie this up and get ready to throw it in the oven.
Excellent.
So I pre-cut my string here, and this is a technique that we show here, and this is actually pretty straightforward. What we want to do is we're just going to tie it, the very fancy knot, the granny knot.
Is that Boy Scout approved?
You know, I think Boy Scouts like granny, so I'm going to go with yes.
All right.
All right. So we got our first knot in place, and then what we're going to do is you just twist it, make a little loop. We're going to come underneath and pull it through.
And this would be the same for doing just about any roast, right?
Exactly. You know, we're not going to serve it with the string on it, and what this is going to do is, I don't know, what do you think this will do?
I know from Food Preparation 1, both teaching and taking it here at Mercer, that it will do two things. One, it'll allow uniformity of the cooking process, so it'll cook evenly. And second, so it's pretty. It's very important to be pretty, right?
Well, as far as our food goes, we'll go with yes.
Well, we eat first with our eyes, don't we?
Exactly.
So it'll look better and cook evenly. Sounds good.
Now, if you're not comfortable doing this with a roast, first time you're trying it, I've actually, I can remember when I went to school, I used to practice on one of those rolled containers of oatmeal.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So,
better than a person.
Without a doubt. So Okay, so we got this tied off. And depending on the length of your roast, you can determine how much you need to put it in place, how much string you need. So we'll go with that. That's going to be enough to hold it all together. So we're going to fire up our pan. And while that pan is warming up, we need to bring in our ingredients to roll this in. All right.
What's next?
Well, we have our beef tenderloin rolled and tied. What we want to do is season this up. A little kosher salt here, and as long as you're in the neighborhood, if you want to put some fresh ground pepper on here too, that would be nice.
Oh, fresh pepper. Tell me when. Tell me when.
We're good. All right, I'm just going to brush it with a little oil here, because next we want our coffee mixture to stick to everything.
Coffee and beef. Who would think it?
You know, it's a wonderful combination. So we have our ground coffee in here.
Caffeinated or decaffeinated?
You know, that could make a difference. But for our purposes here, we use decaf.
Wink,
right.
wink.
A little cinnamon and our cocoa powder.
It's a great holiday dinner.
Could be. All right, we're just going to stir it all together.
I love your spoon.
All right. Well, one less thing to wash if I use one utensil. Okay, so what we want to do is just kind of spread this around on a plate so we can actually roll it on here. And if you would turn on the fire under that pan, and we'll add a little olive oil to that, so that's going to be ready to go.
All right.
All right. And we're just going to take it.
That's a hot pan.
That's good. We're going to be doing some searing here, so get this coated nicely on here.
Is this where the smell-o-vision goes on?
All right. Now, here we go. And with our coffee, some of those coffee grounds are loose. They're going to come off. They're going to hit the oil, and they're going to turn black. You don't need to do this process for very long. You just want to get a little caramelization going, a little browning, but not too much. This does not take long.
The blackened roast.
Exactly. Probably shut the fire off under this guy here. Our carryover cooking from heat in the pan is going to keep things going. That's one thing that a lot of students don't realize when they come and work with our pans in a commercial kitchen. They're much thicker, so they hold the heat much longer.
Absolutely.
So once they start to heat up, they keep going.
Trying to get the smell over through the camera.
I don't think that's going to work.
No.
No.
It's worth a try.
We'll sear off the ends here a little bit. You still see this is pretty rare. So, all right, quiz time. What temperature do we want to cook our roast to?
We do beef typically to 145 degrees Fahrenheit, and most roasts will typically do to 155 degrees Fahrenheit. But of course, that's in theory. If you were to cook this beautiful beef tenderloin much past 135, I don't know, unless you like your steak medium well. Sanitation, textbook versus what they do in the real world. Sometimes different, right?
Well, all it depends on what you want to do in your house.
Absolutely.
Like your beef rare, you can go to 135. You're going to have some carryover cooking. For a roast, 135 would be the minimum, all right, for a steak. For a roast, it's 145. So if we slice this up into steaks, 135. For a roast, 145. So we can probably pull this at about just around 140 because it's going to continue to carry over and cook to our finished temperature of 145. So let's put this in the oven and go to our next step. All right, so now it's time to do some sides.
That's right. Man did not live on beef alone.
Okay, so you take the left side, I'll take the right side.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Of the whole piece of beef, right?
We'll see when we get there.
Oh, okay.
We have to share. All right, so in this pan here, I'm going to make some creamy polenta.
Okay.
And some cheese polenta. And if I had other things I wanted to add to it, mushrooms, I could do that. But today we're going to keep it pretty straightforward because we're going to have mushrooms in our sauce.
Well, a lot of people would serve with the beef a mashed potato or a roasted potato, but we like to be a little different, and this is based on one of the recipes, as well as the beef dish that we teach here at Mercer in our Food Preparation 1 class.
Exactly. So I'm going to add a little bit of vegetable oil to our pan here, just enough to coat the bottom. When I saute off these onions, I'm actually sweating the onions. I don't want to get them to turn brown. I want them to sweat.
For those of you in either of our Food Preparation 1 classes or anyone that plans on taking in the future, sweating means to cook without color. Students often forget that part. The without color, that's key.
That they do. That they do. We just want to brown everything. Not for this dish. Okay, so I'm going to add in our chopped onions. And these are roughly chopped, and that's fine. That's all we need.
They're pretty large pieces. I guess that's just a matter of preference. I know I like to have a little bit of integrity in the vegetable.
Exactly. It's a little bit of texture to what is otherwise a very smooth dish. So let them heat up a little bit. Now, we're actually going to cheat here a little bit, and this is one area of college where I recommend cheating. Right? Make life a little easier for you when you're at home. I have some roasted garlic here. It probably doesn't look like roasted garlic like you're familiar with.
How long did it take you to make that?
As long as it took me to open up the lid, actually. This is a processed product, which is actually just amazing. The smell on this is just terrific. It's a nice smooth consistency. Not that it's that hard to roast a garlic, but sometimes at home you're just pressed for time. This is one of those things that can save you some time and still give you an excellent product.
Well, many people out there are convinced that everything has to be from scratch, and this is actually referred to as a quick scratch item, because all of the integrity is there just as if you made it yourself. The differential being is it didn't take you the time to do it, so it really is a fine product. But for those of you that like to do everything at home, do everything from scratch, about how long would it take you to roast that garlic, then turn it into a paste or a puree like that?
Well, I'd have to turn on my oven. I have to take my my garlic, provided I have it. Still in the skin, not the pre-skin stuff. All right, snip off the tops, not the root end, but the tops, which I guess technically would be the bottom.
Yeah.
All right, wrap them in some foil and put them in your oven and let them cook out for about 20 minutes till they get really soft and mushy. So then what I have to do is squeeze them out.
And if, by all means, if you have the time and you have the product, scratch is always best, but sometimes, especially in a restaurant setting or just even at home when you're busy, to have something that's of good quality that you can just take out and do this with, I think is a great substitute.
Exactly. We're going to add our chicken stock,
which also was made from scratch.
Now,
did you make your chicken stock from scratch today?
Actually, I did. But now, there are some excellent products on the market now. The supermarket, some organic, low salt chicken stocks available.
Mm-hmm. As well as the bases, and you just have to be careful. If you have somebody with a low sodium diet at home, maybe making a stock from scratch is worth the 4 to 6 hours it's going to take you to make that stock.
Exactly. So now it's the hardest part of making polenta. Right? No lumps. No lumps isn't easy to do. All right, so we're going to stir this in slowly, and this is when we talk about polenta, this is coarse cornmeal. Okay, that's all it is. Nothing complicated. All right. So our chicken stock is good and hot, so we're just going to pour it in a little at a time and stir it on in, trying to make sure it doesn't stick.
And this coarse polenta, this coarse cornmeal, is actually from a local vendor, surprisingly enough. So we do try to support our local businesses as much as possible. Obviously, we're not going to grow our own corn and make our own cornmeal out here.
Polenta now is going to do its thing, and while it's doing what it needs to do, which is simmer out, all right. It's your turn.
It's my turn. Well, we have our beef, we have our starch. So what do we need to go with that?
We need some veggies.
Some veggies. So you can see here, very simply, what I've taken is green squash and yellow zucchini, and just sliced it in a rondelle, a round cut, and then cut those rounds in half, creating essentially a half moon. So we have some pretty colors there, right? Some green and yellow. All right, so what I'm going to add to this very simply is a little bit of olive oil. Okay.
Does it have to be olive oil?
Of course not. If Robert Irvine was here, it would be grapeseed oil. Grapeseed oil with everything. But olive oil in this case is nice, not extra virgin because that's more to finish off, but a regular olive oil is nice for the flavor. A little bit of kosher salt, and we always say that we prefer kosher salt because you can see, as we season up high, you get a lot more feel using the kosher salt. All right, so I got some oil, some salt. We're going to do a little bit of Parmesan cheese. Why not? So I'm going to not put too much salt in there because that's very salty. And I'm actually using a little bit of dried herbs in this because I'm going to roast these vegetables. But by all means, if you want to use fresh, what tends to happen is they'll discolor as they're roasting at a high temperature. And of course, a little pepper.
Fresh ground black pepper.
Always use fresh ground whenever possible. Then what we'll do is we'll just kind of toss these. Get those going around.
Now, once you've tossed these in the oil, I like to use parchment paper at home in my pans, but if you have a Teflon pan here, that's going to keep it from sticking, which is kind of nice, and we're just going to roast that off.
Exactly. Just make sure that preferably one layer That way you can get it right on the contact surface. You know, as Doug said, if you want, you can use some parchment paper at home. It's always nice in a pan like this where it touches the contact surface. And so now we have that separated in one layer. Okay, got some oil on there you can see. Right. Now what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and put these in the oven. Usually I like to roast them at a high temperature, at least 400 degrees, if not 425 or 450, depending on your oven. And we'll wait, we'll check them after maybe 10 minutes. When they get to be what's called fork tender, similar to al dente, so that they have a little bit of resistance, we'll take them out. All right?
Exactly. Now one of the things that you might have an issue with at home, not that I'm saying you have issues, but is keeping the temperature correct in your oven. If you only have one oven and you have a beef roasting in there, you really only want it about 325 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So what do? Well, you just have to do the vegetables a little bit longer.
Absolutely.
So, and along the idea of timing, you can see our polenta here is just starting to thicken up here.
It smells great. You can smell that chicken stock in there and the onions and that wonderful roasted garlic.
It really adds, that roasted garlic just adds a nice layer of flavor on here. Now, this isn't quite ready yet, but I'm going to shut it off because one of the things we have to work with and have to consider anytime we're cooking is timing. We want everything done at the same time. So if I finish cooking this before my roast is done, then I'm done. We don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut it off at this point because all we have to do is finish it off with our cream, stir in our cheese, and then it'll be done. So I can set it off to the side. So about 5 minutes before I need it, put it back on the fire, and we finish this up. But for today, I'm going to cheat, and we're going to finish this right now.
The beautiful magic of television.
All right.
Does that mean I get to eat it soon?
As a matter of fact, it does, actually.
Say, God bless television. Well, then I'm going to sound a little Clinton-esque.
Let's not get too carried away.
Think he's watching? Think he's in Maine or upstate New York or some of those other places where Dish It Out can now be viewed? Hopefully you're out there watching it. Don't change the channel. Cheesy polenta coming up.
Okay, that cheese. And it's already shredded, and you can go with whatever type of cheese you like. But our cheddar is going to work nicely with our flavors that we have going. And it's thickened up. And so now we're going to finish it with some cream. And this cream we actually tempered. And if you want to cheat, you can actually do it this way. You don't want to dirty another pan. Since I had to measure it out in the measuring cup, we just tempered it in a microwave. Of course, everyone at home knows what we mean by tempering.
Tempering, adding a little bit at a time, kind of introducing them to one another so that a hot ingredient such as cream doesn't curdle up when you put it in there. Kind of like when you do with your coffee, if you have that cold half and half or that cold milk, and you put it in there and it curdles up and you think it went bad or something, that's just the heat saying, hey, what are you doing? I'm hot. You're not. So a little bit at a time, right?
Exactly. So we've spent all this time making this polenta. We want to heat up our cream and add a little at a time to make sure that, in fact, it's not going to break because the cream is actually in emulsion. You have fat floating around in there. That's what gives us its richness. All right, and it looks like we are good to go on this. So now we can turn down the fire and work on the rest of our meal.
All right, so now we're going to do our mushroom olay sauce, which was inspired by Jeff Kuzminer when we did this dish for a hospitality club once upon a time. So what matches better with coffee on the beef than?
Cream.
Cream, there it is. There it is. I had to drag it out.
Okay, that's it. Well,
he's tending to the polenta.
I'm thinking about you hitting the sauce here. I'm getting nervous.
As you should. Well, I couldn't decide between some butter and oil, so guess what? Use a little bit of both.
Okay.
Okay.
Call that compromise or copping out. Take your pick.
There we go. Well, I'll change the smoke point of that whole butter that I'm using, which I'm using for flavor, as opposed to a clarified butter where we have the water and the milk solids removed. So this whole butter, we're going to go ahead and saute some mushrooms. So you can see here we have some white button mushrooms, sliced thin.
Those are pretty.
Oh.
Did you do that yourself?
Sure. All right, so we're just going to saute these, and basically what happens with mushrooms exude a lot of liquid. So we want to kind of have that liquid kind of exude, and then we're going to saute them to the point where they actually start to absorb back into the mushroom. And once we get to that point, we have right here some leeks that I have sliced up. And so basically it's mushrooms, leeks, some steak seasoning. You can use whatever steak seasoning you'd like. You can make your own, as I did, just some salt, pepper, a little cumin, which I love, especially with with steak and onion powder, garlic powder, but you could buy a pre-made one, some cracked black pepper in there. So
something that suits your tastes.
absolutely. So this one suits my taste. So let me go ahead and season now, because it's very important to season throughout the process. So these mushrooms are starting to get cooked. They're exuding their liquid. They're going to start taking that liquid back in. So as they do that, this sauce you can actually cook for a little while. It has cream in it, but as with most sauces or even cream soups, we add that cream at the end. That way it's not cooking too long with it. We go ahead and add these leeks in.
And of course, one of the things that you can do with this sauce is if you make it ahead of time, you need to hold it. And I'm thinking coffee, you can hold it in a thermos. One less burner that you have to worry about. Heat it up, pour it in a thermos,
That's an excellent idea. Now, my little Maddie hopefully won't get a thermos full of this sauce instead of her normal thermos with soup. And she'd be quite surprised. So this is, speaking of sauce for the sauce, this is some Pinot Grigio. Okay.
No fire?
Did you want fire?
Well, that would have been kind of neat.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wasn't looking for the flambe in this case. I actually just want to go ahead and cook this and reduce this by about half. So I'm going to actually turn this down to a simmer. There's fire for you.
So now, well, thank you. So now people always ask, now there's alcohol in there, does all that alcohol cook off of there?
And it's something that we teach our students that obviously if you're getting the flambe, you will cook the proof off the alcohol. Even without getting that flambe, as I'm doing right now, I'm going to simmer it, reduce it. We'll cook the alcoholic value as far as anyone being intoxicated from this dish. However, we do tell people that if they have any problems with alcohol, the sugars and the residuals that will concentrate, it's not a good idea to feed someone that has a problem with alcohol any dish that contains such a thing, because even though it's not going to get them intoxicated, it may cause them wanting to drink.
Exactly.
That may be just as bad. Okay, so that's started to reduce. You see, it's got some nice liquid, and I can, just like before with you did with the polenta, I can go ahead and turn my heat down. There's enough residual heat in this pan.
Well, that smells pretty good.
Well, thank you. We'll just add a little of this cream, and then we're just going to go ahead and, that's the misnomer there with a cream sauce or a cream soup, that it's got to have a lot of cream in there. So we're just finishing this off a little bit. And there's enough heat in this pan. Those of you at home, if you're working with a burner that's less powerful, you may need to keep this on at a simmer. But essentially, this sauce, when I simmer it, again, I'll just put a little seasoning to finish it off. And obviously, throughout this process, it's best to taste this so you can determine if you need more or less seasoning. But we did season throughout the process.
Well, if you insist.
All right. This is my boss, so I hope he likes it. Of course, the cream hasn't cooked yet.
Getting there.
It's getting there?
The flavor's developing. The wine isn't overpowering because we reduced it down, al sec, as we refer to, where it's almost dry. So it's almost there.
Was there enough seasoning for you?
Yeah, actually there was.
Good.
There's that little hint of cumin in there. Quite nice. Now over here, we can see we're actually getting a little thicker here again, which is kind of nice to see. All right,
Well, that's looking great.
Just about there.
Now, can you give us a little more description about polenta, because it's not used as much as it really should. Maybe tell us a little more about it and some other ways that we've used it here.
Well, it's very versatile. I mean, you cook it as you would a grain. You're going to simmer it out, as we did here. But we could do more than this. I mean, this is a creamy polenta. And if you make polenta without the cream, we may get away with it with the cream, depending on how much is in there. You can actually layer it out, put some parchment paper down and refrigerate it, and it actually firms up.
Yeah.
And at that point, I like to cut it up, and actually you can grill it, or you can go ahead and bread it, or put bread it with some more Parmesan cheese, perhaps, and then grill it off that way.
Sounds great.
Good stuff. So it's not just creamy. You can also get a nice crunch and nice texture to it when you grill it off.
All right, so our polenta's just about there, right? Our sauce is just finishing up. See, it's coming back to a simmer there. And our beef should be just about done, so our vegetables we'll have as well. We got those roasted zucchini and squash, the beef, the sauce, the polenta is almost done. What are we missing?
Knife, fork.
Knife, fork. How about some dessert?
There you go. Okay, so we're going to wrap up our savory portion, and we're going to add some dessert with some coffee.
Is it that time?
It's that time. Dessert. we're gonna make brownies, but not just any brownies. We're gonna make some espresso brownies.
Ooh.
So now I've already, to save time, I already have my flour, my baking powder, my sugar. Oh no, actually, I have my box mix in here. I'm cheating again.
A box mix.
Box mix. Imagine that.
Nobody at home's using a box mix, are
Of course
they?
not.
There's another wink. Not a winker, but you get the drift.
Okay. So for this box mix, it's pretty simple. All right. Our eggs and our oil. All right. That's easy enough. I'm just going to leave it as a little pool in there because the next thing I need to add is the water. What I did is I took some of the water and I heated it in the microwave, and we're going to add to this 1 teaspoon of instant coffee. So I'm going to use the instant coffee as opposed to the espresso. Because I'll be zipping around all night. So 1 teaspoon, and what we're going to do is we're going to add it to our really hot water here. Now this, I'm just stirring it together so I can get the, make sure there's no little granules left. And this can get poured straight into our mix here. However, one of the things that we do have here are coffee extracts that we can use, which is, you can see already in the liquid form. But if you don't have that at home, your instant espresso will work. And again, about a teaspoon, and back off the amount of water, all right, that you have in the recipe anyway, like we did here. We want to get that all right in.
As a matter of fact, the company that's one of our sponsor partners for our programs, Anthony Todaro. Hello, Anthony. Has come in and been on the show before. He does a lot for our program, and they have all these extracts that they have, that obviously for restaurants and industry, but they now have them available for retail. So if you look out there in your supermarkets or online, you'll see a lot of these different extracts, all different flavors, everything from mango to coffee and everything in between. So it's great. They have the bases, the extracts, all these different things that can make life easier. The roasted garlic that we used.
That's right. But now you have to be careful because some of your less expensive or cheaper extracts can get very bitter.
Yeah.
You're expecting just the flavor, and it's not flavor. It's not too bitter to really utilize in a dish like this.
The old adage goes, sometimes you get what you pay for, right?
Exactly.
Except when you come to Mercer County Community College, where education is affordable and you do get a lot from your money.
That's right. Affordable, flexible.
Is that plug
lot of
number
fun.
3? Is that plug number 3? But who's counting, right?
Whatever it is, it's not enough.
Not enough, especially
Okay.
when we're giving you beef and brownies.
So you can see we got all the lumps out of here, which is what we want. So now I could do the same process if I was making a cake. All right, I can make a coffee cake. Well, no, not in the traditional sense, but a chocolate mocha cake. All right, and I'm going to pour this into my 9x13 pan here. All right, so we just want to level it out as best we can. Pop this in our oven, cook it off. We have dessert. We'll know it's done.
We stab the heck out of it.
Well, we just poke it and it comes out clean. So we can pop that in the oven, and dessert is on its way.
Well, what goes better with since we have our beef with our coffee au lait sauce, we have our brownies with
Whipped cream.
whipped cream. So we're going to do 2 different whipped creams for you. I have here the one with the hooch, as they say. Is that the proper terminology for alcohol?
Hitting the
these
sauce
days?
today, Frank. I
The
don't know.
sauce, back to the sauce. This is actually, I won't be drinking it, don't worry. It's a coffee flavored tequila, right? So we're just going to go ahead. We have some whipped cream in here. It's virtually already whipped, just a little left in it. We're just going to pour, a shot worth in there. We'll go ahead and whip that up, and I'll put it in a pastry bag. And for those people that are non-alcoholic, what do you have for them?
Okay, well, there's another alternative here. Our whipped cream, we've whipped up our cream to soft peaks here. We'll finish whipping it. Once we add, I have here some, it's actually just a dry powder of cappuccino mix. So this is fresh whipped cream, so there's no sugar in it at all. And what we're going to do is we're going to pour some of this in and whip this up. And you're going to do this by flavor. All right, so if you're keeping track at home, that's about half a packet. That would normally make 1 cup of cappuccino. I'm going to stir that on up. And it's going to have a little bit of a grainy appearance, all right, but we're not going to liquefy this. But we'll have a nice flavor. And it's a light powder, so it's not so grainy that it's going to be distracting to the eye. The other thing you can do with this is if you have a non-dairy whipped topping. All right, so if you want to do a non-fat version, you can do this exact same thing with the non-fat, non-dairy or dairy topping, but the non-fat topping works fine. So we're going to have our espresso brownies, and we're going to have it with a side of cappuccino.
There we go.
Or hooch.
Or hooch, yeah, the sauce, right? Some coffee flavored tequila in this.
Okay.
And this also you can do by taste or by how toxic you want to make it, I guess.
One for me, one for the topping?
Absolutely.
Any coffee liqueur would do. All right, so now we want to make it look good, as well as taste good. We know it tastes good.
Which one should we do with the sauce? Does it matter?
Why don't we do them both with the sauce?
Doing both with the sauce.
That way we can have a little toast later.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. And I guess if we had a little of that instant espresso or some chocolate, if we wanted to sprinkle that on here, would be nice too. But you have a wonderful strawberry that's fanned out there with a little mint. That's very classic. So I think that's probably all we need for this, right?
Not complicated, fresh dessert, easy, ready to go.
Well, I guess that sums up the episode there. All that's left to do is...
Try it.
Really? You're not teasing me?
I'm not teasing you.
Oh.
Our coffee rub filet mignon. Looking pretty darn good there with our creamy polenta. Which I'm going for the polenta. It's just looking too good.
I'm where the beef is.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Dish It Out. Hope to see you next time. Thanks for joining us.
Enjoy your coffee.